trained to sit with that monster, with the discomfort of what that actually looks and feels like. And what you were just saying now about this heart and this head, or the design and the art and the creative and the entrepreneurial, I think is so powerful because, so you mentioned Steve is a hero of yours. Same with me. I feel like I've studied everything he's ever said or written. Yeah. And one of the things I love, this was an interview that Mark Zuckerberg was doing with Prime Minister Modi from India. And he said this on stage to Modi, I believe this was in San Fran, and Mark said to him, he said, when he was struggling with the direction of Facebook, now Meta, in 2009, which is 5 years old, Facebook is, right? He went to his mentor happened to be Steve Jobs. And he said to Steve, he said, what do? I'm struggling. I don't know which direction Facebook should go in. Now, if you think about 2009, Steve Jobs is undoubtedly one of the most connected humans on the planet, has access to money, tech, everything you could possibly ask for. And Steve says to him, I want you to go and live in an ashram in India.
Wow.
I want you to go live there, and I promise you if you go there, you'll figure out the direction of Facebook. And Mark said he actually went to that monastery, that ashram, and he said in that ashram, that's where he decided that at that time, Facebook was about connecting people.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't know that story.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating, the reason why I like to share that story is I'm always fascinated by what a tech entrepreneur thinks as much as what I'm fascinated what a monk thinks, because it's that cross-pollination. It's that extreme of diverse thought where those two things don't collide. They don't have the same agenda. We're not living in an echo chamber. When you're talking to an artist and an entrepreneur, there's no echo chamber. You've broken it open now. And so for me, MIT did a study on that where they found that the most innovative employees inside an organization were people who didn't know people who knew the same people. There were people who knew people who had random connections. So their network chart was completely uncorrelated. Whereas people who had networks who were correlated were less likely to be creative and entrepreneurial.
There were fewer unknown discoveries.
Exactly.
And I feel like in my own life, like Steve has this saying, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. I grew up playing ice hockey, I played team sports, I went to a military high school, design college where I first studied fine art, then design. Then I went to MIT for a semester. We had a cross-enrollment product development program. Then I went to Los Angeles as a designer at a firm. Then I went to Silicon Valley with very little and got thrust into the technology industry. And it turns out that I did not know how any of these experiences would add up together. And they all came to me. Mm-hmm. And every single one of them I've used, every single experience, but I could never have reversed engineered how to get there. And it is amazing that, Steve used to say, the best engineers were also poets. Mm-hmm. And he was really saying that creativity is about connecting dots. It's about having disparate experiences and bringing them together. And if you haven't had a lot of different experiences, if you aren't very multidisciplinary, you're not going to be able, Einstein was like a violinist. Right? I think a lot of the greatest scientists have leaps of the imagination. They're not just using empirical information. And a lot of the greatest artists, they have an organized mind. Sometimes they have a fascination with numbers, and so you start to bring things together. And I think that is exactly what we probably need in this world. We need more creativity. Mm-hmm. Whenever you see two bad options, you don't like it. The right answer is the third option. Yeah. The third option is one you haven't come up with yet that requires novel, innovative, imaginative thinking. Where does it even come from? Where does creativity come from? If creativity, I don't know if Einstein ever said this, but there's a quote attributed to him that is that logic can take you from A to Z, but imagination can take you anywhere. Mm-hmm. I love that quote. Don't know if he said it, but I believe it. But where does that come from? Where does imagination and creativity come from? I think it comes from a sense of openness. It comes from curiosity. It comes from maybe not first following your passion, but following your curiosity with a deep intensity and being curious about so many different things and trusting that you can be curious about something and learn about something, not knowing if it will ever be useful, and have the trust to say that every single thing you'll do in your life, you'll do with the accumulation of every single experience you've had before. Mm-hmm. And that the more places you've gone, the more people you meet, the more things you learn, it will all come to you. And you might not know ahead of time how it will be useful. And honestly, if I hadn't gone to military school, I probably wouldn't have been so organized. If I didn't go to design school, we probably wouldn't have been as creative and innovative in our thinking. If I hadn't played team sports, I probably wouldn't have understood about camaraderie. If my parents were social workers, I don't think I would have had this focus on service and connecting people. And I could never have imagined any of those things being useful, because growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I wasn't athletic enough to be a famous athlete. I wasn't handsome enough to be an actor. I wasn't good enough singer to be a musician. I did not think I was going to be an astronaut, politician. And so I'm like, I don't know who I'm going to be. I don't know what I am. And like the word entrepreneur was a word I'm not even sure I heard of growing up. It was like, to me, it was an obscure French term. I didn't know what it meant. And I saw Walt Disney as a kid on television. I thought one day I'll work for him, not thinking I would start a company just like him. And I never imagined that was possible. I guess we're all born with unknown potential, as I said before, but you have to live experiences, as many as you can. You put them together. And I hope my story inspires people, not for the remarkableness of it, but the ordinariness of who I was before. To say that, like, if I joined you mentioned the Giving Pledge. If you ask my teachers in high school to predict which of their students would be a signatory of the Giving Pledge, I do not think I would have been the top of their list. I don't think that takes anything away from the teachers. I think it just means that maybe that potential is in so many of us, and it's also maybe a little bit random and anything is possible, and the story you tell yourself might not be accurate. And I hope that my story inspires people from the ordinariness of where it came from. That I was just like everyone else, but 100,000 decisions later, with enough resilience, creativity, curiosity, and determination, you wake up one day, you're like, oh my God, look where I am now.